Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation TV with your host, Jeff Charles. In front of a backdrop that resembles something you might see in every dystopian future movie, President Joe Biden proceeded to demonize half the nation under the guise of warning about MAGA Republicans. The speech was panned by folks on both the left and the right. What in the world was he thinking? I have with me Liberty Nation's chief political correspondent, Graham Noble, to help me unravel this whole thing. Welcome to the program, Graham.
Nice to be here, Jeff.
That rhymed, the program, Graham. Okay, anyway. You wrote your article for LibertyNation.com, and pretty much everybody has seen Biden's speech from last Thursday. But here's the thing. I mean, he did essentially demonize half the country, but he's not the only Democrat who has used this type of rhetoric. Charlie Crist in Florida, who's running for governor, told DeSantis voters not to vote for him. New York Governor Kathy Hochul implied that Republican voters should move to Florida. So do they actually believe they can shame people into not voting at all? Or what do you think is going on here?
Well, I think certainly you could say that's part of the reason, Jeff, why they're doing this. I also think it's just a manifestation of the left's new way of looking at the country, which is kind of, it's been developing, I would say almost actually since Barack Obama was president, but it certainly picked up steam once Trump got into office. And now it's rampant. And what I'm talking about here is this move towards a mentality that the left has adopted, that they don't want anything to do with conservatives or Republican voters. I mean, they literally don't want to be associated with them. I noticed the other day, for instance, I read somewhere that there was a poll that said that a distinct majority of left-leaning students, college students, said that they would not room with a Trump supporter. And I think it's the left's new mentality that they don't just see us now in terms of having irreconcilable political differences. They also see conservatives and Republicans, libertarians, basically anyone on the right. They see those people actually now as I guess, to use one of their favorite words, as toxic, that they don't even want to be around those people. They don't want to have anything to do with them. And so that whole thing, like, Kathy Hochul saying, well, you don't belong in New York. It's all part of that. It's a complete, they've decided to just completely ostracize and cut off the entire right.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up that this isn't a new thing. I mean, because people do like to say, oh, this started under Trump. No, this was going on even under Obama and even under Bush. I mean, if you look at how progressives and members of the activist media were always bashing Republicans as being racist, bigoted, homophobic, and what all the phobic istophobes that they come up with, this has been going on for a while. So we're seeing the culmination of that. Yeah. And Trump was a repudiation of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, in his speech, here's what's kind of confusing people. Biden said that he was referring to MAGA Republicans in his speech. And then the next day, he kind of backtracked, or maybe he just forgot what he said the day before and said
That's
he wasn't
possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he said he wasn't talking about all Trump voters. But what does he actually mean when he says MAGA Republicans?
That's hard to say. It's almost as if sometimes you think that one thing that left wingers are very good at, and including elected Democratic Party officials, is they're just very good at insulting other people. It's one of their favorite pastimes is just to insult people. It's almost like they live for it. If you spend any time like you and I do, you spend time on social media and, you try to have any interaction with a left winger, and the first thing that will come out of their mouth or out of their keyboard, if you like, is an insult. I mean, it's just that they love to do it. They think that they can always win an argument with insults, but, they always come up with these great new labels. One time it's, I've noticed Islamophobe seems to have gone out of fashion now. I haven't been called an Islamophobe for a long time, and I'm certainly, I've spent a lot of time in Muslim countries and I have a lot of Muslim friends. So I'm like the least Islamophobic person out there. But I remember being called an Islamophobe all the time, just for pointing out that, Islamists want to kill us, which is a true fact. So it was Islamophobe, and then it was homophobe, and now it's, transphobe is one of their favorite new ones now. You're transphobic, and it's funny because even gay people can be transphobic. I know gay people who have been called transphobic because they won't date a transgender person. So they come out with, they get ever more creative, and of course, MAGA, which of course stands for Make America Great Again, you'd think that nobody could possibly have an objection to anyone wishing to make America great again. But they've now used it, it's now become an insult. And Joe Biden, I think Joe Biden's only just discovered the term MAGA because, he used it so often in that speech. It was like every other 2 words out of his mouth was MAGA Republicans. And I think someone just made him aware of what MAGA is. Just maybe the day before he delivered that speech. And so he really, he loves using that. But what does he mean by it? He basically, obviously he means Trump supporters. That's what he means, Trump supporters, MAGA Republicans. I guess calling them MAGA Republicans somehow seems more offensive, perhaps. It seems more sinister, maybe, than just calling them Trump supporters. I don't know, maybe, but that's what he's talking about. He's talking about Trump supporters.
Well, and what's interesting is that you see people trying to cover for him by saying that, he's only talking about just a fringe in the Republican Party, not all of them or not most of them. But in one of the things that he listed as defining a MAGA Republican is that they are pro-life. Well, there are plenty of Republicans who wouldn't identify as MAGA who are pro-life. I mean, there's a lot of commonality when it comes to policy between MAGA and non-MAGA, America First, establishment, non-establishment. So it's hard for him to argue that he wasn't demonizing half the country. But I wanted to go to something that you said in your article, Graham. You said, quote, "Beyond that, however, it seems the chief executive is not aware of the fact that survey after survey reveals that most Republicans still support Mr. Trump and still favor him above all others as the GOP's 2024 presidential candidate. So most Republicans are indeed MAGA Republicans." And I think it's true, at least as far as how Biden would understand it. But do you think that the Democrats understand this? Or do you think maybe they have a different definition of MAGA Republican? Or are they trying to redefine the term? Or I don't get where they're coming from on this.
I think, Jeff, that they know exactly what's going on and they're very well aware of the figures. And, when I wrote that article, I wrote a subtitle for that article, which was something along the lines of, tell half the country you hate them without telling half the country you hate them.
I saw that.
The fact of the matter is, the left loves to do one thing when it comes to any issue, whether it's gun control, whether it's abortion, whether it's the border security, immigration policy, any of the big issues. You will always note, and you've obviously noticed this, Jeff. I have as well. Is that they will always make this claim that the people who disagree with them are in the minority on any issue. On any issue, they will say, they'll always say, most Americans want, unlimited abortion on demand. Most Americans want more gun control. Most Americans want this and that. They pretend that they are in the majority, which is kind of silly because, in fact, even on the left, on the political left, the progressives actually are a minority. Most Democrat voters would not necessarily identify as progressives, unless perhaps they just weren't aware of what the term progressive is. So they are in the minority, but they always pretend they're in the majority. But the other thing about it, coming back to this whole, what's the difference between a Republican and a MAGA Republican? The Democrats know full well that they are, they're trying to make themselves seem less unreasonable by always saying, we're only talking about a minority of Republicans, but they're not, because most Republicans, I believe it's somewhere in the region of 60 to 70% of Republicans actually want Donald Trump to be the 2024 presidential nominee for the GOP. I mean, so he is, he beats out everyone in the polls. He beat, even as popular as DeSantis is, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Trump always usually kind of wallops him in any poll when it comes to people being asked. So basically, this is the left is trying to create an illusion that they know is not true. In reality, I believe, perhaps I'm being unfair to them, perhaps I'm misjudging them, but I believe that really they just very much dislike every single person who votes Democrat. Who votes Republican. They probably dislike some of the people who vote Democrat as well. They just don't want to admit it. But that's what it is. They use this. Oh well, we're only talking about the the hardcore Trump supporters, those MAGA people, but in reality, they're talking about everybody who doesn't agree with them. And, that's just the truth of it, I believe.
Yeah. So last question before we wrap this up. What do you think their objective is? Because like I said, it's not just Biden. It's Biden, Charlie Crist, Kathy Hochul, and others. What is their objective to using this type of language? Because they're even getting criticized by left-wing news outlets for this stuff. So what are they trying to accomplish?
Well, I think it's two things. Earlier on, you made the point about, are they trying to shame Republicans into not voting? And I believe that's actually a big part of it, because obviously they realize that very few Republicans are going to be, are going to be swayed to voting Democrat in elections at any level these days. Whether it's state, local, or federal. There are very few Republicans who will on any occasion vote for a Democrat. And I think probably the same is true in reverse. And so they know they can't win Republicans over with their, crazy ideas. So therefore they're just trying to shame and bully and intimidate people who were never going to vote for them into not voting at all, which is kind of ironic because they always talk about how much respect they have for democracy. But if they could possibly figure out a way to stop any Republicans ever voting, they would do it. Let's not pretend otherwise. So I think it's part of that, shaming people into not voting. And I think the other part is that I think they honestly believe that they don't need to, like the days when they needed to kind of reach out to the other side, those days are over. They don't want them anymore. Yeah. And so, so I think it's basically all part of just, they just, I don't know how else to put it, Jeff. They just think that everyone who doesn't agree with them is a horrible, horrible human being. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that works out for them in November and also in 2024. But we'll be keeping an eye on it here at LibertyNation.com. Thanks for joining the program.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
And remember, the show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news and analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. Just go to LibertyNation.com on your browser or hit Rumble, YouTube, or check out our Liberty Nation News Roku channel. I'm Jeff Charles. Thank you so much for watching. This program is a production of LibertyNation.com, where truth is making a comeback.
Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe space.
You only did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.